Yes, so right now here's my screen, and just as I've earlier mentioned, the Leader Pattern Design Crash Course brought to you by OhepoLeatherCraft to cover some of the parts, the four parts it's the course is made of. So you can see them here. And so the first one, just like I've said, we'll learn introduction to basic and computer graphics. So you get to learn about 2D graphics, get to learn about raster and vector graphics. So from there we'll proceed to the introduction to CorelDRAW graphic software. Okay, so here you just learn the basics of CorelDRAW workspace and the interface. You learn about tooltip text, and you learn about hints and some other like node, the terms, CorelDRAW terms like node, midpoint, edge, hint, tab, and all that. So you get to learn about all those ones. So where I want you guys to pay attention is CorelDRAW tools. Okay, so for the course, these are the tools we'll be using for basic pattern designs in CorelDRAW. Okay, so I'll get to show you guys how you walk through it, and how you could go around using these tools to create later patterns. Okay, so then the final part of the course will now end with a hands-on practical, coming up with a later pattern design session. Okay, so without wasting much time, I'll proceed with the first part of the course, which is introduction to computer graphics, 2D, raster, and vector graphics. Okay, so basically, what is computer graphics? Computer graphics is a branch of computer science which deals with the studies of the study of digitally creating and manipulating visual content. So what this means in a nutshell is whatever we can see, you know, whatever we can see, digital content we can see, these are all things related to computer graphics. You get, so all those, like those digital files, pictures, and all that you can see, they are all terms related to computer graphics. You get, so that's just the basic of it. So it's a branch of computer science, just like how we have medicine. They'll tell you neurosurgeons are those that deal with the brain, like that. So for computer graphics, it's strictly for what, for for creating and like the studies of computer science that deals with the creating and manipulating of visual content. So this visual content can be any of any of these files we can see with our eyes or interact with. Okay, so this will move us to the next subtopic, which is the types of graphics. So just like I wanted to say just now, so whatever we can see with our eyes, you get, in terms of computer graphics, can be classified majorly into 2D or 3D. You get, there's 1D, and of recent, with the whole coming of AI, you hear things like 4D. But for now, what the world is conversant with, you hear of 2D graphics and you hear of 3D graphics. So when you hear the D there, is just basically dimension. So when I mean 2D, I mean 2 dimension. That means you can see these graphics from 2 dimension. Okay, so a typical representation of a 2 dimension could be like Y and X axis. Okay, so the Y is one of the axis and X is another axis. Okay, so 2 dimension. So when we now say 3 dimension, now we are not talking about, you can see it from the 3 sides. Okay, so let's relate it again to the normal term we can relate it to, X, Y, and Z axis. Okay, so that's basically example of 2D and 3D kind of graphics. So a typical example for 2D graphics are more like our posters, logos, and all that. Those are 2D, most of them. But nowadays we have people coming up with 3D logos and all that, but everything still ends up 2D. You get, so but for 3D, a typical example of those things are more like 3D animations. Those computer graphics you see that looks very real, close to like human, like close to like the real deal. You get, whereby you can see someone, they'll render an image. You hear like 3D graphics, and you start hearing terms of rendering, but in 2D you don't hear such terms. Okay, so before we proceed to the next topic, which is the types of image, you get, I would like us to have a particular word in mind, which is pixel. So pixel is just a short form for picture element. Okay, so a pixel is the smallest unit of a digital image or graphic that can be displayed and represent on a digital display device. Okay, so way back in school, we get to learn like that's university now though. picture. That's pixel is the smallest element of any digital file you can sense. So it doesn't change. The definition is there. So and a good example of the pixel we can interact with in real life is that probably when you look at your phone, there are those small dots, or you look at any screen, or you look at your TV, there are those small colored dots. Most times if you look at the TV, you see the dots, it appears red, blue and green, like that. Those are those small those pixels now have to now come together to create what the picture that our eye can now represent as a graphic. Okay, so have that in mind, know what a pixel is. Okay, so and we'll proceed to the next one, which is the type of images, right? So basically for now, with 2D in mind, because I earlier said having 2D in mind, when you hear of a when you hear of a raster and vector, yeah, your mind should just go to 2D, because this is a term that is familiar with the both of them. Like, so the 2D is familiar with these two terms. Sorry. So when I say raster, like a raster image, you get this. On the other hand, you can hear people say pixelated image. You get, they are more of those images that are built upon the basis of pixels. Yes, every image you see is made up of, but there are some that is so granulated that it's made up of pixel. And a good application of the raster image is a good application of it in real life is in photography. So each time you put off your phone, you put on your phone to take a picture, or like to probably interface all those pictures and everything you see on the phone. Those are typical example of raster images. Okay, so from your phone or from your digital camera, those are good examples of raster image. So, and they have some file formats. So what it means, file formats here, is just like what's a real example I can relate it to. So file formats, we can relate to file format as we know what a file is. Okay, we have documents, and you can refer to document as a file, you can refer to a picture as a file. So now that file have to have a file extension. Okay, that is what the computer itself will now understand and classify some of these files to where they belong, or be able to use some of those files. So when you see something like .jpg, that's .jpeg, some people call it .jpeg, it's an example of a raster image file extension. So each time you open a picture and you see .jpg, you know that picture is a raster image. Same thing with a png, same thing with bmp. Okay, so this image here typically shows a good example of a raster image, and I want you to pay attention to this cycle here. Okay, to this cycle here, I want you to pay attention to it. So this cycle is just a part of this image, that has been lifted out, or that has been zoomed in. So if you look at the image, you can see how the image is looking like box, like quality is dropping. Okay, so back to my point that I said earlier, that raster images are pixelated images. They are built on the basis of pixels. Okay, you can see that clearly shown here. Okay, from afar, your face, you can look at it, your eyes can see the image as smooth, and when you zoom in, you see that it's pixelated, it's made up of small boxes. You get. So the next type of image we'll explain here is the vector image. So the vector image is probably what you work with most when you're designing patterns. Okay, and a good example, the real life application of it is for large or small format prints. So you're talking about your flyers, your posters, your billboards, and all those examples. All those are examples of vector images. And as we have it also, these are some of the file extensions. So your PDF, your SVG, and also Corel, the CRD files are also vector images. Okay, so below here is also a good example of it. So you can see the difference. So pay attention to this cycle. You can see, if you look at the cycle, it's so smooth. Even if you zoom in, the image still remains smooth compared to when it is this. You can see how it's pixelated here. Okay, so and to wrap up, I will look into let's do like a versus form of raster image versus vector image. Okay, so just few points to note. The difference, you can say difference or versus, but difference will be best though. Okay, so difference between raster image and vector image, some of the difference I've captured here is that for raster image, they are composed of pixels. Just as I've earlier mentioned, they are pixelated and made up of pixels. Okay, while in vector image, they are composed of paths and curves. You get. Then for the next point here, when we scale up raster images, they lose their quality. Okay, when scaled up, they lose quality. While for vector, when scaled up, they still retain their quality no matter what. So that is why it's still good for large format printing. So no matter how you zoom it big or small, it's going to retain that quality, that image quality. So, and also for raster image, they occupy more memory space, okay, than vector. So vector, they occupy less memory space. So what this basically means, if you're creating files of vector and raster type, you will see that the raster image will consume more computing space than that of the vector image. Okay, so the next point here, which is the last one, is raster graphics cost less than vector graphics. So in terms of creating it, it's more expensive because this is more labor intensive, compared to this. So just like when I say labor intensive, is like you take your picture with your camera, you just press a button and it creates that file. You don't need to do more. But for graphics, for vector graphics, it will actually need someone to sit down, design and everything to come up with such image. Okay, so that has brought us to the part of this first course. So this is just basic computer graphics, so we don't expect anything serious. Just for you to, it's more like an introductory session so that you understand basics of computer graphics, which I do believe you have gained one or two knowledge from here to use to apply for what is coming up next. So that is it. So with this, we have come to the end of the first part, which is the introduction to computer graphics. So, and I believe you must have gained little knowledge of what computer graphics is, and you familiarize yourself with terms such as pixels, such as vectors, such as raster graphics. So without wasting much time, I'll see you in the next part of the course. Bye.